I think the fascinating thing is slavery. Slavery was the order of the day, and the leading philosophers and moral thinkers of our time, from Jesus to the Buddha to Muhammad to Socrates and Aristotle to all of them, never ever really spoke much about slavery, about owning other human beings, about selling someone's children. It just was never really brought up. It just wasn't. You just see it. It's like it was just what was done. And then, who really started the abolitionist movement? The beginnings of the abolition of slavery worldwide. Who did it?
No. Who?
The British. In the 1800s.
Really?
And who did it in specifically evangelical Christians.
Wow.
The abolition movement was started by what you'd call, fanatic, Christians, but they risked everything and convinced the crown to enforce a ban on slavery in the high seas. So if you were a British naval, ship, even if if there was a Turkish ship over the Ottoman ship over there and they had slaves, the British spent years and great cost at basically hanging slave traders, freeing slaves, all that stuff on the high seas. So even though there was a lot of racism that went on, the Brits and their Navy were the ones that began the abolition of worldwide slavery. It didn't allow it on the high seas.
Now, how amazing is it that didn't take place until what?
1865, sir. Now listen.
Well, that's when it was abolished in America. Was that abolished all countries?
No, Britain abolished slavery, I believe, way earlier than America did.
So we were 1865.
We were 1865. Another thing to remember is the United States has been a country with slavery longer than it's been a country without. So that gives you an idea of how recent that is. Okay?
Stop and think about that.
Yeah.
That number 1865 seems so recent now. It used to, when I was a kid, it felt like it was forever ago.
Yeah, I know.
When I was like 5 years old and I thought about slavery, I thought about it as being like eons and eons in the past.
Do you know what book I just read?
What?
Besides the Bible, arguably one of the most influential books ever written in the 19th century.
What?
Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Whoa.
Yeah. I realized I hadn't read it. And I think that it's Harriet Beecher Stowe, and I think the legend is that Lincoln said, "So you're the little woman that wrote this book that started this great war," because she put this. She had never actually. She was from the North, but she interviewed fugitive slaves and people who used to be. And if you read that book, man, it put such a face on what slavery, the brutality, what it was really about in this country or anywhere, where you could take a woman's child, 8-year-old, and you'd get some money. And it's the story where the slave trader goes, "Well, I'll buy the kid. I could fetch a good price for him down south, and we'll take him when his mom ain't there. Maybe have her go do a chore, so when she comes back, Otherwise, it's all kinds of hemming and hawing." And they had slave brokers who would come in and go, "Look, your plantation is in debt. You got to start selling some of your slaves." Now, I'm not going to take those guys, but that woman, she's got those 2 healthy-looking boys, and you would sell them, and she could do nothing about it. That was the reality. And Uncle Tom's Cabin, controversial book because of the way they describe Uncle Tom as a simpleton and a Negro. But I'll tell you what it did is she made you realize in Technicolor, with a human face, just exactly how horrible it was. Ooh. And what happened to the women who would have to see their children sold in front of them and they couldn't do anything. Blah, blah, blah. But
that's not a blah, blah, blah.
It was,
right?
Well, it was for many people what galvanized the North to say, we can't have, this is crazy. Can't have slavery.